he's trying to appease. The time for appeasement is over. Unless he's playing some kind of 4D chess that we don't understand, which seems less and less likely by the day. Trying to appease these people does not work. It will not work. And that statement that you pointed out, Mark, that's suicide for Western civilization if that continues and there's going to be a civil war.
But I also want to say this. I firmly disagree with this idea that there's going to be a civil war in this country. And not only that, but I think the encouragement of a civil war, or the implication that it can be some sort of act that someone can engage in and somehow destabilize and change the context, and that is somehow going to be our way out, is extremely deleterious for the white positive sphere. And it doesn't matter how much we say that we are against violence or against criminality. Saying that something like that will happen and saying that the outcome could be positive is a rapid way to get your ass locked straight up in jail. I will only advise people to look straight back in history to people like White Aryan Resistance and some of this Christian identity groups who said repeatedly, don't go out and do something violent, but if something violent were to happen, and then they were sued into oblivion. The federal government came and either locked them up or they spend the rest of their lives having 3/4 of their checks garnished by the federal government, by way of the federal government or state governments from this lawfare that takes place. So this idea that there's going to be a civil war without a physical entity to which people can pledge themselves or what have you, that is the fastest way that you can put an end to this cause for white well-being. And that's why people like Birdie, that's why so many other people out there come to a false understanding and therefore false prescriptions about how to go from where we are today to white well-being in the future, which, by the way, I will say again, is going to be a series of contexts. The reason why so many people, context shifts. The reason why so many people like this idea that there's going to be some event is because they're lazy. They want it to be easy. This is not going to be easy. You're not going to be able to be a coward. You're not going to be able to entertain yourself with wild speculations about how things might play out and buy maps about where you might go depending on how things might play out that other people are doing. That's another thing. Folks, you are going to have to do this yourself. If you want white well-being, you've got to come together in communities to make this happen. We've got to move into proximity with each other. We have to support each other financially. We have to be above the law at all times, nowhere close to the breach of the law. And by the way, no one is going to want to live in physical proximity to someone who's potentially planning to do something criminal or illegal in the future because they think some small little act is going to somehow tip the United States of America. I mean, talk about an incorrect notion that this Birdie woman has, an incorrect notion about the United States being on the verge of falling is so colossal compared to a misunderstanding of anti-whites and whether or not you can sit down across from them and reach some sort of common ground or some common conclusion with someone whose morality is your erasure. I mean, you have to understand this. We have two freight trains steaming head to head against each other. Two separate, entire different moral structures. One of them, the anti-white one, says that it is only moral if you, white man, white woman, white child, Western civilization, cease to be. There is no common ground with somebody like that. There is nowhere you can meet over cappuccino and say, well, we can somehow come to some friendly conclusion. This is the conclusion of a little girl who is disoriented in her little playroom, and she's thinking out of orifices other than her mouth. I mean, it just makes no sense whatsoever. And those who think that, and this is, as I say, not just equally stupid, but beyond stupid. Those who think that you're going to somehow be able to destabilize or fight against the United States of America are just unconscionably ignorant. You can go ahead and buy all of the weapons you want. You can go ahead and you immediately, as soon as you begin planning militias, I mean, how poor does your memory have to be? As soon as you begin planning militias or secret acts, secret sabotage acts against the United States of America, they're going to know who you are. The moment you share that thought outside of your head, they're going to know who you are, and then they're going to come down on you Waco style. My friends, they're going to come down on you Butler style. They're going to come down on you Randy Weaver style. But that is only your miserable life that is going to be lost in the process of making a bad decision. What's going to happen for the rest of us is that the United States government, the most powerful government on the world, and remember this, when you want to think about how much more power the United States has than the population, how much more advanced it is, just try to understand when the SR-71 program was put into effect and they were driving that thing down the road in a giant box, this technology that was the equivalent of Martian technology compared to the technology available to the general population at the time. That and more is what the United States has up its sleeve. That and more. You are not going to resist them in any physical way. They want you to come onto that playing field, because the moment you come onto that field, they crush you, and then they use such acts as a casus belli to wipe the rest of us off the map, to come down and note well that Trump has done nothing to stop what's being done to us and the loss of our First Amendment rights on all of these different platforms on which we speak and communicate these messages. What do you think is going to happen the moment that some deranged idiot goes out and blows up 3 feet of some rail line somewhere for the great right-wing revolution? What do you think is going to happen? Is that going to put the United States under? Or are they going to come and arrest Patrick and me and John Mark and everyone else who's speaking publicly about serving white well-being and things that are happening now? And they don't even need some idiot hyped up on psychotropic drugs and deranged and should be in an institution to do it. They could send out, it could be a false flag operation. And if groups of you all are talking about it, they will use that as the evidence for a grand jury and a jury that you all believed that some violent act would result in a positive outcome for us. And that will be the grounds on which you will go to prison for life. Matt Hale is in jail for life because he didn't say, out of all the times that the guy working with the feds, the narc, said, let me go kill this XYZ. Matt said, no, don't do that. One time he didn't, and he's in jail for life. So all of you that think that you're speaking with bravado and that something's got to be done, well, all you're doing is being a coward, because you're waiting for somebody else to do for you the actual work of spreading white well-being, the actual work of getting out and handing the flyers out, the actual work of winning the masses to our cause.
And this is one for no white guilt. You're getting a bit of pushback here tonight, my friend. And I'm going to give my opinion on this after you've given yours. But Nipex man gave $5 and he said, so no white guilt solution is do nothing because you can't win. The founders didn't use flyers to win. They used guns. What do you say to that, my friend?
Oh, I thought you wanted to go.
No, I want you to go, then I'm going to go after you.
Okay, well, that stems again from I don't know, maybe a low IQ. You have to understand that for there to be a revolution, for there to be a civil war, there needs to be what? Can anybody guess? There needs to be an entity that can oppose the entity that you want to oppose. You cannot, as individuals, oppose the United States of America, because you will be obliterated. That is simple. You will bring an undue amount of focus on our cause or the white positive sphere by discussing such things. We can look back. Do these people who are saying these things, do they not elect COINTELPRO? Have they not looked into that? Do they think that such programs have stopped? We used to have, I've been in the movement for a long time. We used to have face-to-face meetings. There was no online. IRL was the way things happened. And the FBI and other law enforcement would insert people in those groups. and they would recommend doing illegal things. And as soon as people would tolerate the recommendation of illegal things, it doesn't matter that it's entrapment. It doesn't matter what the law says. What then matters is that they come and arrest you all, and then that agent or that narc or whatever goes free. This was the norm. And this is going to be the exact same tactics that the government is going to use again to squelch the movement. That is plain and simple. Anybody calling for violence or anybody suggesting that any violence will yield a positive outcome for us. And that's the same thing. Even if you repudiate committing crimes, if you think that violence will result in something positive for us, there'll be a positive yield for us, then you are going to end up in front of a grand jury, and they can make the case, and they have made the case and have succeeded many times in jailing our people. So this is you compared it to the American Revolution, where you had the wealthiest people in the land all come together and decide, okay, we are going to express the will of our people. We want to have our own nation. This is a flawed and absolutely ahistorical understanding of how the American Revolution happened, how the secession of the southern states happened, how the Soviet Union fell, how Afghanistan was able to resist the Soviet Union. This is an absolutely ahistorical, wrong-headed understanding of all of these events. And that's why you end up coming to these erroneous conclusions. I'll just ask anybody who wants to push back on passing out flyers and winning people over to our cause. And let me say, the reason why we need to be making content, passing out flyers, preaching, etc., and bringing whites into the cause for white well-being is for power. That is the only access to power that we have. We do not control the printing presses like the anti-whites control. We do not control the mainstream media like the anti-whites control. We do not have the financing to make movies like they're able to make. The only power that we have access to is the scores of millions of whites in our nations, that the just basic white people out there with basic white sensibilities, that if we win them over, then we truly have power. That is where it's going to come from. It's not going to come from somebody planning in their basement or speculating about how some war might take place, doing nothing other than buying ammunition and guns. Because ultimately, when the day comes that they decide to come and get the guns, very few of these people are actually going to shoot it out with the government. We've seen it before. We saw in Katrina, when the U.S. government, when they've tried these endeavors, these disarming, when the U.S. government sent troops down in Louisiana and were collecting the weapons, were there shootouts? No. People turned their weapons over to the troops that showed up. It becomes a very easy thing when you're sitting alone when you're sitting alone in your house and a half-ton truck pulls up and a dozen and a half troops get out of it with their M16s, and they say, we know you have weapons and we've come for them. It becomes a very easy thing to do to turn them over. So that's the obvious reason. These people who, and it's also the other thing, the question I wanted to ask is, if you believe that somebody else is going to do this war for you, you believe that somebody else is going to save you rather than you going out and doing the hard work yourself. You believe it's going to be some war, some act of terrorism, some act of sabotage that somehow is going to undermine the United States. Talk about a misreading of the power of the United States of America. That somehow is going to undermine that. What do you have to do then to save Western kind? Nothing. You just have to sit there on your ass and wait until something happens. Wait until somebody else does something to pull you out, to pull your titty out of the ringer, as they say in America, because it's all going to be done for you.